So hello world, we are live with Zoe from the Exodus Collective. How are you doing, Zoe?
I'm pretty good. It feels like we're hurtling towards the end of the week. So yeah, that's always a good place to be.
Yes, we are. We are indeed. So you're out there in Grenada. What we're going to chat about is Caribbean food first, and then we're going to talk about what you do in the Exodus Collective. All right. So tell me a little bit about Grenada. What's it like in your beautiful island?
Grenada. Grenada. I feel like Grenada is one of the undiscovered secrets of the Caribbean. If you say the West Indies to people, people think about Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, like the big destinations that people go to. A lot of people think Grenada is a town in Spain. It isn't. It's actually an island. We're to the north of Trinidad, to the south of St. Vincent, and it's lovely. It's really small. Population's around 110,000. There are some lovely hotels here, but it's not that touristy. You can go to the beach and have the entire place to yourself. And people are just really authentic. They're not really trying to hustle. They're not trying to sell you stuff. They're just like that. If you happen to be visiting, they'll just want to know anything about you. And yeah, it's really laid back. Really, really laid back.
Cool. So, what sort of sporting activities? Because I know, like the Caribbean islands, there's a lot of water sports that goes on. Is that something that you're into?
No, I probably should be, but no, I'm not. I'm not that much of a swimmer. I mean, there's paddleboarding here, kayaking. What else? Grenada. It's not huge on water sports. I mean, if you want to bring your stuff here, you can. But in terms of infrastructure, like surfing schools or kiteboarding, none of that is set up. But the waves definitely can be suitable for that. It depends what time of year. Sort of November, December, and Easter time. That's when it's quite windy and choppy. So if you are into water sports, that's always an option. But for me, I quite like sailing. I like sailing. So my son has sailing classes on Saturday mornings. Eventually, I might try and get a license. But yeah, I'm more like the laid back. Let's enjoy the ocean while, chilling, not actually getting wet and that
So, what are the top beaches over there?
The top beaches. Okay, I will share the top beaches I'm willing to share. The top beaches I want to keep to myself, so I'm not I'm not putting that out on the internet. But the most popular beach in Grenada is Anse Beach, and that's probably 2 miles long. It does have some really big hotels, well, for Grenada, big hotels there, but it also takes you all the way to the town, to the capital, which is St. George's. And it's just lovely, like white sandy beaches, clear blue seas. And again, it's never packed. It's never, ever packed. And I quite like that because I used to live in Spain. I remember going to the beach, lying down like sardines, people stepping over my head. I'm like, what is this? This is not relaxing. This is not where it's at. So in terms of Grenada, you're definitely spoilt for beaches.
The name of that beaches again? Say
Anse. So Grand, next word Anse. It's a French word because Grenada used to be owned by the French, but we just say Grenade.
Right. Now, I believe I've been to that beach before. Once before, around 2017.
Okay.
We was there for motorsports. So the leisure time that we had wasn't a lot. So we popped down to the closest beach and it was lovely. And just as you described, long and so quiet as well. It felt like we had the whole beach to ourselves. Yeah.
Exactly. Were you doing car racing up in Pearls?
Yeah, there's one of our sponsors is a gentleman called Mad Cow Trini. He's a dragster and he goes all over the Caribbean. He's taken us to Guyana as well, but he goes all over different places. But yes, it was. I believe that name does ring a bell. Pearls. Yeah, it was like a drag strip.
It used to be the main airport on the island, and there's some old Soviet planes from when the revolution happened. So yeah, it's a really stunning location.
Yeah, you've been seeing the footage as we're putting it up on the screen now. But it was a lovely event. Interesting, lovely people. I think the gentleman that hosted the event has sadly passed.
Graham? Yeah, I think I know the guy, Graham. Yeah, he passed away, I think, in a motorcycle accident. But yeah, they used to have some amazing setups up there.
Right. But yeah, lovely spot. But what another thing that I remember from there is like you had near the beach, like there was, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like a microbrew next to a restaurant. It was closed, so I didn't get a chance to try anything, but went to the restaurant later and it was lovely food. Like, it wasn't really, it was typical international food. It wasn't really Caribbean food, you know.
Okay.
Right. But give me another couple beaches, please.
Another couple of beaches. So La Sagesse, that is, I think I prefer that to Grenada. So it's not in St George's, it's in the neighbouring parish, which is St David's. And again, it's always pretty much empty. It's on a bay, so it's kind of enclosed. So it's never rough. And I quite like taking my kids there because you can walk out for quite a while before it gets deep. It has a lovely hotel, which used to be, I think, a plantation house, but it doesn't have that like depressing plantation vibe about it. And yeah, you can just chill on the beach. You can eat in the restaurant there. It's just lovely, quiet, calm, and clean, and that has a bit more of a vibe about it because it's surrounded by mangroves and trees. I think it used to be a sugar plantation, so you've kind of got the vegetation behind you, the sea in front, some sort of cliffs to the side. It's a great place for photo shoots, actually. So yeah, La Sagesse is great. If you want to get out of town and head up north to the countryside, there is Bathway Beach. So that has, I don't know how to explain, it's got like a ridge of rocks, maybe say 10 feet out from the shore. So again, the rocks form a barrier so the waves don't come crashing over. And older people love to go for a dip early in the morning, like soak their joints and all that sort of stuff. So that's the main beach for people up north. And again, they've got little food stands, nothing very healthy. It's kind of, fried fish, fried chicken, chips. There might be a couple of places that might do local fare, but it's just a really fun place to hang out on Independence Day. That's where people tend to go and do their cook-ups. At moonlight, people often have parties, well, in the days before COVID, when you're allowed to play loud music, that's where you would go. But that's more the beach for local Grenadians. Tourists, some tourists go up there, but it's a cool place.
Okay. So let's get on to the food. Where would you go to in Grenada to get some wonderful Caribbean food?
So, if we're saying Caribbean food in general, my absolute favourite place, and it's cheating because it's not a Grenadian place, I think it's called the Roti shop. And I love roti and I love doubles. And I'm quite particular. I mean, I think if you know roti and you know doubles, you can get to be quite picky about what you have and like you just won't tolerate anything. But I would say arguably the best place to get roti is the Roti shop in a town called Grenville. And it's just delicious. And the doubles are just, I can't even put into words how that thing of just like biting in and it's creamy and the tanginess of the tamarind. It's amazing. I mean, I always eat there when I'm driving up to the north of the island, and I never manage to eat less than 3. And it just my energy goes. Yeah, they're just so good, so good. So
when I get them, I tend to get triples. So it's like three barrels.
Oh.
Yeah, and I can't eat a doubles. Some people can eat it on the side of the road. It's too messy for me. I have to like have it on a plate, and I use the third barrel to like try and dip in and help with, because I just can't get control of all the sauce. So yeah, it's very technical.
Yeah, my mouth is literally watering as you talk. So for me, I always eat them while I'm driving, and when I get there, like my steering wheel is just covered in chana, but I don't care because they're just so good. You need to eat them when they're fresh and hot, right? Oh, I want one now. Actually, I wish I hadn't spoken about that.
Yeah, I love it with our local beer, Stags. I find that when I was in England, the English used to love like a hot curry and a beer. And that kind of grew on me. So over here, I love a hot peppery doubles or roti and a stag.
Yeah, it balances it out, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want one.
Are you going to give me the name of one of your secret beaches?
Which secret beach can I share? Okay, so it's not a massive secret, but there's BBC Beach, which is kind of, so Grand Anse is one bay like this, and then it's got like a point, and then on the other side of the bay is BBC Beach, which is a smaller bay, really deep waters. It has some hotels there, but it's got a lovely bar there called the Plywood Bar. And it's just really like, not run down, but it's just low key. It's nothing fancy. Like, they have a cocktail list, but I wouldn't recommend getting cocktails. Just get shots and rum and yeah, stuff that you don't have to mix. And they play music. They do like these lovely fish tacos, some homemade chips. And it's just a great place to dip between being in the water, having food, having drinks. And the vibe is just really, if you like fancy stuff, don't go there. But if you like to just chill, be around good people and relax, like it's a lovely spot. It's owned by a guy called Nigel. And I'm not going to turn traffic away from him. He deserves the support. So great beach, great spot to drink and eat.
Either of those two bays, can you get any Caribbean food?
Can you get Caribbean food? That's a good question. So there's a restaurant next door called Fantasia. And at night it's a club. And I'm imagining they've got, they must do Caribbean food. They must do Grenadian food. It doesn't stick to mind. I know I have eaten there, but there's nothing that sticks to mind. But if you want to try something local, I'm sure they would have something you can check out.
Okay. Well, let's hear another couple of your recommendations around the island for great Caribbean food.
Right. So all of my suggestions are going to be low key. There are some really fancy restaurants here. You've got the Calabash. What's the restaurant there called? I forget the name. The hotel is the Calabash. I forget the name of the restaurant, but it used to be owned by Gary Rhodes. He was a British chef who was very famous in the 80s and 90s. And he opened a restaurant there that was kind of a fusion of, it was authentically Caribbean, but I guess it had a slight English twist in the way that it was prepared, etc. So that's probably one of the best spots for fine dining. There's also the Spice Isle Resort, which is on Anse Beach. That's Grenadian owned, so I'm all about supporting Grenadian owned businesses. It was owned by a guy called Sir Royston Hopkins, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But if you want sort of upscale fine Caribbean dining, that's the place to check out. But where I tend to like is just simple stuff, like roadside places that you can pick up and just have really authentic hotels.
What I want to hear.
Perfect. So my one place that I would definitely recommend is a place called Anse. It's not far from a rum factory. We have Clubs Court Rum, and it's not far from there. But it's like a wooden front. It's kind of like this grid sitting where you can like sit behind there and eat food if you want to stay in. But he just does like a whole array of soups. So whether you want split pea soup or red bean soup or fish waters, he does a lot of that. He'll do different types of meat, so like curried meat. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not going to be able to go into like the ins and outs of all the meat dishes, but every day the menu changes slightly. My favorite days to go there are Tuesdays and Fridays when he does Bus Up Shop, which is just that's a Trini thing. I need to champion some Grenadian dishes, but it's just really good, honest foods. It's not fast. Like you'd think if it was in England, they'll just put it in a box and you'll have it in under a minute. There, it takes a little while to prepare, so you can always knock a few back while you're waiting. But yeah, it's just really honest, delicious, tasty food. Tasty food.
Lovely. Okay. So what would you say is the national dish for Grenada?
So the national dish of Grenada is oil down. It's a dish that's prepared. I mean, you can cook it on a fire indoors, but you definitely, if you cook it on an open fire with like not fresh cut wood, but like wood, the smokiness that it adds to the dish is just delicious. And it's a mixture of breadfruit, callaloo, pumpkin, whatever meats you want to put in there, or you can do an ITAL version too. And it's basically stewed in coconut milk, saffron, ginger. So it's really, it's cooked slowly, but the flavor is just so rich and tasty. And that's the national dish of Grenada. It takes quite a while to prepare. It's not like a quick dish. And it's always better when like lots of different people are chipping in. So some people do the coconut, and you can't do it. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't do it with packet coconut. You need to pick your coconuts, grate it, get your coconut milk, because it just adds like a creamy richness to it all. And it's actually Grenada's Independence Day on Monday. So today we've been picking coconuts because a friend of ours is doing a big cook-up on the beach. So that's our contribution. We're bringing the coconuts for the coconut milk. Someone else is bringing goats. It's a communal dish. It's a communal. You can't really cook it for one.
I've had it before and it's lovely. I wasn't there when they actually made it, but is there a lot of oil actually used in the process?
The oil comes from the coconut milk. So, like, if you wanted to make coconut oil, you basically get the milk and you cook it in a way that allows the oil to separate. So the oiliness comes from the coconut, but it's not oily. It's not like, yeah, you don't really notice.
Yeah, because it didn't strike me as an oily dish. So I was wondering where the name actually came from. And
yeah, maybe it's part of when so you put everything in, and then as it begins to cook, the coconut milk boils up. And I'm imagining as it boils up and down, what it might leave is like the richness of the coconut oil on top. But yeah, I've never noticed it to be particularly oily, despite the name.
Lovely, lovely. And where's the best place to go and get an oil down in Grenada?
By my friend. So like the best, I can't remember. I've got a friend of a friend who has a bar in a town called Snell Hall, which is up in St. Patrick's in the north of the island. And quite often, whether it's someone's birthday or whenever, it's just an excuse for a cook-up. And people will someone will chip in the flour for the dumplings, someone will chip in the pumpkin, someone else will bring callaloo, and they just cook. And what I love is that the men cook. It's rarely the women. It's quite a blokey thing to do. Like you'll just sit, chat, cut up.
That's what it's like over here too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that about the Caribbean. I'm all for men cooking. So yeah, St. Patrick's is a parish where that whole communal eating really is. It's a tradition that's still being preserved. So quite often you might have a rum shop that's selling rum, but they'll have a pot of food outside just cooking. They won't ask you to pay for it. And yeah, people just take turns. When you've got a spare bit of cash, you chip in. Next time you don't have cash, but you'll eat. And yeah, it's just a nice tradition. And I think finding ways so that more tourists can experience that, or more visitors to the island, because it's a really great way to get to know people, I think, kind of talking over food, waiting while the pot is boiling. So yeah, I think that's a really great way to get to know Grenada.
Cool. So we're going to chat about Caribbean food in sunny England. Where do you go in England to buy some lovely Caribbean food?
So my favourite place to buy Caribbean food in England is a place on Balls Pond Road in Dalston, and it's called Pepper and Spice. It's a Caribbean takeaway, but the range of food that they have is just so broad that I think it's definitely worth a visit. And you have to be careful what time you go there, because quite often there's queues out the door. Like it's that good. My favourite thing to get there is escovitch fish, because I don't really love cooking fish at home, but yeah, it's just so so good. And again, not a Grenadian dish, but I'm pan-Caribbean. I'm supporting all the islands through my foodie taste. But yeah, that kind of the vinegariness to it, the kind of crispness on the outside. Yeah, they just have it, because it's tricky to produce tasty food in large quantities, but they manage to do it. And I'll probably get that with a bit of macaroni pie, coleslaw, and quite traditional in what I have. But yeah,
they've got another branch, I believe, as well.
Yeah, one in Tottenham.
Yeah.
One in Tottenham. I haven't been to that one, but my dad used to go there all the time. But yeah, hands down, the best Caribbean takeaway I've been to in England.
Did you ever come across any Grenadian shops, Caribbean shops?
I know there was one in Kilburn. I didn't ever go there. There was the Roti Hut. I don't know if you ever remember the Roti Hut that was in Shepherd's Bush.
No.
It was owned by a Grenadian guy, but I have a feeling that the people behind in the kitchen were Trini. That kind of crossover. But that was amazing. Like if that was still open, for sure, that would be the place that I would recommend, because just like there's a fine art to getting roti skin right. So it's got the flavor. It can't be too tough. It can't be too thick in my book. And it was just awesome. But again, you'd wait 40 minutes for a roti. I'm like, how does it take 40 minutes to prepare a roti? But it was worth the wait. And it was a cool hangout spot because you're guaranteed to see someone that you knew. So yeah, that was a Grenadian institution, but it's no longer there, unfortunately.
Right. Okay. Well, give me somewhere else that you might go apart from Pepper and Spice.
Do you know what? I don't really eat out that much when I was in the UK, and I had to be in a certain mood for Caribbean food. For me, if I'm eating Caribbean food, it's like a family do. So it's when other people have cooked it. I don't have to wait that long. So yeah, family get-togethers, birthdays, christenings. That's typically when I get Caribbean food. Yeah. So in terms of dining, I mean, I used to go to the mango rooms back in the day, but that was probably more about drinking than the food. So I can't.
Where was that?
That's in Camden. In Camden. Yeah.
What, near Dingwalls?
I can't remember. I can't even remember where Dingwalls is past the market or closer to the Jazz Cafe.
That would be like really on the actual canal, literally.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, by the market.
Yeah, it's before the canal. Before the canal.
Right.
Yeah, I believe.
Okay, lovely. All right. So normally do you cook Caribbean food?
No.
All right.
No. So my parents left Grenada when they were kids, really young, and then my mum moved over, and then her mum passed away probably like 3 years later. So she never really had that thing of like being taught how to cook. So even growing up at home, maybe at Christmas she would do like roast bakes and cocoa tea, but Monday to Friday we weren't typically eating traditional Grenadian or West Indian food. So my partner now, he's Grenadian, and he's kind of horrified at how little I know how to cook. But I'm slowly learning how. I mean, like rice and peas, that sort of thing. But his thing is like, why are you using a recipe book? Like, you should just know this. You should just know how to measure. And I absolutely don't. So I'm literally like Googling, reading pages, highlighting, measuring out. And he's like, what is this woman doing? But I'm getting there. But my thing is, Caribbean food takes so long. It takes so long to cook.
Yeah. Sorry about that, viewers. Sometimes we get a few technical issues there. All right. So you was talking about your cooking training.
Yeah. But you know what?
It takes a long time. It does take a long time, and like we're in a life now where it's quick hustle bustle. We want to get things done. We just want the taste there and then. But right. Let's talk about the Exodus Collective, your story, and I understand you help people to move to the Caribbean.
Yeah, and you know what, in some ways it's a good segue from what we were talking about just before in terms of like the fast-paced life, because one of the things I'm thinking is like, listen, if I don't even have time, if I'm not making the time to cook for myself properly, is my life really in the right order? Like how much, like eating is essential and eating well is really, really essential. So I think that's the more time I spend in Grenada, the more it makes me just reflect on my priorities, and perhaps maybe there's some stuff in my life that needs to go so that I can have time to cook something that takes longer than 20 minutes. I'm very much about development in the Caribbean. You know, it's a beautiful place, a beautiful region to come to, lots of stunning islands, beautiful sky, beautiful scenery, lovely beaches, but there are some real issues here in terms of like poverty, unemployment, etc. And I think since the 50s, if not before, like my great-grandfather left Grenada to fight in World War I. So my family has been giving to England for more than 100 years. But probably there's a time where we need to think about like what do we need as people? What do our islands need as nations? And I think the pandemic has definitely made many people reflect on like, where do I really want to be? Where's a safe space for me? What sort of life do I want to lead? And I think more and more people are beginning to think, okay, maybe coming back to the Caribbean is an option that I should start exploring, whether for myself, for my family, or later down the line. So I first did a stint in Grenada in 2015. no, actually, it was 2014. I was working as a consultant for a development organization, and I was like, "Listen, I have to go to Grenada." So I just managed to work remotely for about 6 weeks, and it was amazing. I mean, it did mean waking up at 4 in the morning, but once I was done, like by 1 o'clock, I was out on the beach hanging out with my son. And I was like, I definitely want to do this longer term. So in 2016, we moved out. My son went to school here. I was working as a journalist, so again, able to work remotely. But we ended up moving back to London, and ever since, people have been saying, like, how did you do it? I mean, people normally do that when they retire. People go home, build a house, that's when you move to the Caribbean, not in your 30s. And I was back in England, and England is amazing. Like, it has a lot to offer, but in terms of quality of life, like 100%, it was not where I wanted to be. I remember every year when the clocks went back and that darkness and coldness and horror, I was like, why the hell am I here? If I'm not going to be here this time next year. And I said that for 6 years in a row. But finally managed to make it out last year. But in the meantime, I'd slowly been setting things up, like figuring out where my son would go to school, making friends, making networks, started a small business here. And I was supposed to move back in 2020, but obviously the pandemic happened. But around that time, like the whole George Floyd murder, the resurgence of Black Lives Matter, I just wanted to kind of show people that there were other places to be, safer spaces to be, more nourishing spaces to be. So what I started doing was interviewing people who'd made the move, whether it was from the UK or the US, Canada. I even had one mixed race woman who'd moved from Sweden to Jamaica, just to show like what it looks like to move, what are the sort of considerations you need to be thinking about, what's the process of settling in overseas, how do you kind of not be an obnoxious foreigner abroad, like there's so many levels to it. And yeah, we basically just tried to work my way through all of the island to give people a picture of what it might look like. And yeah, it was great. It was basically the thing that got me through lockdown, because I couldn't travel. Like, my flights kept on getting cancelled. I'm going nuts. I hate it here. But every week I'll be speaking to people like, no, come on, you can do it. Like, when you get here, it's going to be amazing. And the good thing was, because it was a YouTube channel, other people were watching it too. And they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I could see how that could work for me. So yeah, it's been exciting. It's been really exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So you interview anyone from anywhere who moves to the Caribbean
Well,
that you can find?
my thing is they have to be Black. They have to be Black. I'm not like, the Caribbean is for everyone, but I think one, there's a unique need for people of Caribbean or African descent to be here in the Caribbean and working, obviously living well, but I think understanding the need to give back perhaps is more present for people like us. I do think there is an issue, and I don't know how to say it diplomatically. There is an issue of the Caribbean being overdeveloped by people who don't necessarily have the Caribbean's best interests at heart. And that's not unique to a specific race, but the probability is if you're from an island, you're not going to want to trash it. And two, I also think that, especially speaking to African Americans, to Black Americans, there's a real thing of like, nah, that's we don't do that. That's not us. Like, it's about hustling. It's about like climbing to the top of the ladder. It's about kind of staying safe within the system as we know it. And to choose to do otherwise, to choose to extract yourself from that, to choose to move somewhere that's seen as a developing country. A lot of people are like, that's not safe, we can't do that. And there's many people who kind of end up being ostracized by their families, or just being thought of as really weird, or just not getting it and not having any support. So I think to be able to speak to the courage that's needed to take that sort of step, I think us as Black people, we can have that conversation in a way that a white person might not. A white person might be like, well, why do you have to talk about race? Well, for us, it's relevant. There are real reasons why you would not want to be a Black person living in the UK, or you might not want to be a Black mother raising a son in the US. And I think it's important to have those conversations in that context, and not to moan. Like, and if you watch any of my videos, it's not about ranting and raving and complaining. I'm very much solutions focused, and yeah, just talking to people about what alternatives look like and how to go about creating them is something that I'm really passionate about.
So most of the people that you've interviewed had already made the move.
All of them.
Okay, right.
All of them have made the move. Yeah.
Are the majority of them happy with the move?
I haven't spoken to anyone. I mean, yeah, I haven't spoken to anyone who's unhappy. I haven't spoken to anyone who's unhappy with the move. I spoke to a woman, so she's Black British, originally born in Nigeria, but she grew up in East London, and her husband is from Dominica, but she lives in Guadeloupe. And she was really honest to kind of say, you know, the government is trying to persuade people to come to Dominica, but the infrastructure here is not great. Like, internet connection is not great. There's areas that you go to and the sewage isn't as it should be. But she said, on the flip side, the nature is stunning. The people are incredibly friendly. So that's the thing, like, nowhere is a utopia. Nowhere is perfect. So I think ultimately it's about choosing, like, what's important to you. If it's Amazon, being able to shop on Bond Street and, you know, X, Y, and Z, the Caribbean's probably not going to work for you. Maybe Barbados might, because they've got lots of fancy stuff. But, you know, it's not for everyone. And I'm definitely not about trying to force people to come to the Caribbean. But if you do want an alternative, if you do want a slower pace, if you like nature, if you like people saying hello and being friendly, then yeah, it's worth thinking about. And at least, even if you don't move here, one thing that more of us need to do is to get citizenship. Like, really, it's really scary how many people, I mean, all of us of Caribbean descent at one point had the opportunity to apply for passports, but many islands, you can only do it through your parent, not your grandparent. I know that's the case in Grenada, and I think in Trinidad too. So that's the other thing that I'm trying to encourage people to do, is at least make sure that your children have options. And it doesn't cost much to get a passport.
Because you can get dual citizenship. So yeah, might as well apply, as you say.
Yeah.
What do you find is probably the biggest problem that they've had in the moving process?
Choosing to do it. I think once you set your mind to it, then there's nothing that's going to stop it from happening. Like, even me, like, I wanted to come, I couldn't come. I think I had like maybe 8 cancelled flights, but it wasn't like, oh wow, it's been cancelled 4 times, I'm going to stay in England. Like, that wasn't going to happen. Like, do I have to go via Miami? In the end, I ended up going via Barbados and St. Vincent to get to Grenada. But yeah, I think once you set your mind on something, it can happen. And for me, it wasn't easy. Like, I knew I wanted to do it. I knew that I needed money aside to develop a house I'm working on here. So it meant sacrifices. It meant I didn't go on holiday abroad. I bought all of my clothes from Primark. We started shopping at Asda instead of Sainsbury's. I stopped going to the hairdressers, but I knew why I was doing it. And yeah, I didn't look like glam, but
yeah, but you feel glam now.
Yeah, from the inside. From the sun, from the sea, from the peace of mind, for not having to deal with as much nonsense on a daily basis. So it's all about choices, really. I think, again, once you set your mind to it and you know that there's a purpose to your moving, or there may be a purpose, then yeah, there are ways. There are ways. And I'm not rich by any means. I'm not, one of these wealthy people who've got like a investment strategy, so they're just getting thousands each month from doing that. That's not me at all. But if I can do it, and I'm a single mom of 3, anyone can, if you want to.
Do you get earthquakes over there or flooding?
No, there's tremors, but not as bad as there seem to be in. You guys get tremors, right? Do you guys have earthquakes too?
We had a tremor this week. That shook me because, to tell you the truth, I'm still shaken from the earthquake in 2018.
Right.
That one rocked me to the bones. Because normally when you get an earthquake, 10 seconds, it's over and you feel the ground move wherever you are. It's weird in a car because you're going with the suspension. But
Wow.
the one in 2018 felt like about 2 minutes. I had time to think, hey, what's going on? Hey, I better get out of here. Hey, where are my keys? Oh my gosh, panicking, get out. I flew out, I was in my briefs. I didn't even have time to change. That's how panicked I was. All the neighbors and things were outside and it's still going on. And it was scary. Luckily, there wasn't any real major damage on the island. But it's powerful enough to
Mhm.
make you realize, wow, it is a scary thing. And we had a big flood, I think it was the same year. Um, and I'd say 80% of the village was suffered under these conditions,
Wow.
flood conditions. And that was a lot worse damage-wise than the earthquake. But yeah, those are two minor, well, let's say minor things that even though they happen, I mean, things like power cuts, we get power cuts here, which you hardly ever get in England. But it's just a beauty about being over here in the Caribbean every day. You walk down the road, the nature, the sun, the people, just love it.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, no,
really love it.
absolutely. In Grenada, we don't really get earthquakes, but there have been hurricanes. It's officially outside of the hurricane belt, but I think there've been three in the past 60 years. But it's funny, I was here in, when was it, August, and there was a storm. And like, I went to the bathroom and the door closed like the wind closed my door. And then there was water, like it was raining, and so there's water coming in through the window, and then like the plug exploded, and I was like, "Oh my lord! If this is just a storm, imagine what a hurricane." I was not happy. I was like, "No, this is really intense." So that is a reality of living in the tropics, like
Yeah.
tremors, yeah, hurricanes. Um,
How are
but
you with the creepy crawlies?
I don't love them, but I don't hate them.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't love them. I try
I
not to
mean,
kill them, although I did kill a
oh,
centipede.
wicked. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you're like me. If something's in the room, if it's not bothering me, I'm not bothering it. You know?
yeah. The one thing I did kill, the only thing I killed, which was yesterday, was a centipede. Do you guys have centipedes?
Yeah. I think they're more millipedes. The ones we have over here,
See,
they've got.
I thought they were the same thing, but there's centipedes here, and when you see them, they just look like the devil. They're kind of red, like these. They look awful, and that's the only thing because they can send you to hospital. But
Oh,
aside
the
from that,
massive ones. I thought you were talking about the tiny ones. I know the ones you're talking
they're
about.
awful, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
Do you kill those, or you let those be?
No, I afraid them because like I'm normally in bare feet
Right.
or socks or whatever, and I've seen the pincers on those, and they look like they can give you a good nip. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd kill the frogs. I wouldn't kill. I'd leave. We have like these wasps that generally leave you alone if you leave them alone. But there's another smaller type that attack in groups and numbers, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'd get rid of those.
Okay. Are they called myborns? We have them. They like live in a little. Their nest is like that shape. Is it that one?
Yes, we I don't know the names of that particular one. We have one called a Jack Spaniard or a Jet. That's the
Okay.
same thing, but those are bigger, much bigger. The smaller ones, I've forgotten the name. Because luckily, I don't see them as much as the Jets, but the Jets don't bother you as much, you
Yeah.
know. But I'm
Snakes.
glad we've
Snakes.
listed
Yeah.
some of the perils for the people listening, you know. And when you think about it, it's not that much. I mean, I was doing some gardening the other day, and like some bush that I had to deal with. And I'm thinking, this ain't so bad, you know. Like if it's a snake that's in the grass and it hears the rustling, it's gonna run off. It's not like I've got to deal with like any lions or bears or anything like that, you know. So yeah, it's nice over here. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, and it's not. It's not perfect. There's going to be a period of adjustment, but it's life. it's not a holiday, it's life. And wherever you are, there's going to be pros and cons. So I guess it's just about having the right mindset to be able to deal with it and, yeah, being able to take the rough with the smooth.
So the majority of people that you've interviewed on the Exodus Collective, are they male, female, or a balance?
No, for the most part, I would say it's women. And even in terms of the people, reaching out for me for information, I'd say it's more of a split. Um, but yeah, in terms of the interviewees, it's primarily been women. There have been quite a few single women who've moved. So I think that's been quite interesting to kind of, what does it look like to build community on your own when you don't know anyone and. But yeah, there have been a couple of men. One guy who was originally born in Jamaica, moved to the UK when he was a kid and moved back. He's really cool. He runs a group called Black Expats and Repats in Jamaica. You can find them on Facebook, and they've got loads of information on like finding a lawyer, safe areas, setting up a business. And another younger guy who moved to St. Kitts and Nevis. And he runs a fintech startup in the UK, but he can do everything remotely. So yeah, there's been a couple of others in Jamaica, but for the most part, it's been women, which I quite like.
True. Okay.
We should interview you. Represent for the men. Represent for Trinidad. We need to.
Yeah, whenever you want to get me on the show, I'll be delighted.
Yeah. Because lots of people inquire about Trinidad. Lots and lots of people do. So.
Oh, so you haven't interviewed any Trinis yet?
I have interviewed a Trini, but I thought she lived overseas, but she actually didn't. She's just sounded like she had. But she runs a website called, or a design practice called Designer Island. So she was kind of talking about the creative scene in Trinidad. Because I think especially for Grenada, which is really small in terms of the arts and film and music, there's a little less going on. So I really wanted to give people who do want that kind of creative energy around them an idea of what Trinidad is like, because it seems like it's your entertainment industry is quite significant, isn't it?
Yeah. On for example, our TV. Basically, it's just a news station. We'd get the news in the morning, then it would probably be followed by something foreign. Then midday news, then probably something foreign, and then the news, 7 p.m. I just believe that they don't really want to invest in local production as a safe bet.
Right.
It's a lot cheaper to buy like foreign shows that people know or people want to watch than it is to invest in a local production that may or may not be a hit. But the thing is, this discussion, we're in the Caribbean. We're in one of the places that so many people around the world would love to go to. We've got so many stories to tell.
Exactly.
I think international people would love to hear. But I think with our music as well as the media, or our programming, we kind of like localize it. It's just for our audience. I don't think we think about international audience enough. And that's the next step I think we need to do, because as I say, we've got a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, but at least you guys, have film festivals. You've got lots of amazing filmmakers, music videos, art galleries. I think in Grenada there's like one art gallery. It's quite different, but again, it's not that difficult to get from one island to the next. And I think I'm based in Grenada. I definitely don't feel like I'm tied here. If I want to explore something else, I can go to Trinidad if I want. The world's a big place, and yeah, we should explore more, I think.
What is the actual? Are there any COVID restrictions over there now?
Yeah. What are the in terms of curfews or anything like that?
Curfews, and like say if you wanted to go to a restaurant to eat.
Yeah, so it depends. So, like the more touristy restaurants, some of them will ask you to show a vaccine certificate.
Right.
Some of the bars as well. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Also, but it's not compulsory.
No, it's not. I mean, I think it's it's Grenada, so maybe it's supposed to be compulsory, but the restaurants that know that they'll lose all their clientele don't ask. Perhaps um, it's supposed to be compulsory, but it varies.
Right. Now, over here we have a system called safe zones. Um, if you're operating as a safe zone, then you need to be vaccinated. I don't believe some places you could wear a mask or not. But yes, if you, for example, go in there and you're unvaccinated, you're liable to be fined quite heavily. Plus, the owner of the establishment is as well. So yeah, it's a lot stricter over here.
Okay. Yeah, here the onus is on I think it's on the owner. So some of them will like scan your barcode as you get in. But there's I don't think there's fines for people who pretend to be vaccinated but aren't. Yeah.
Right, yeah, massive fine over. But let's talk about how the people can get in touch with you and the Exodus Collective.
Yeah, so the best way is either on Instagram, which is at the Exodus Collective dot just giving you the wrong address at the Exodus Collective on Instagram or on YouTube. There's hours and hours of interviews that you can watch with folks who've moved from all over the world to different destinations in the Caribbean. There's also a website, theexodus.co, and that has a forum where you can post any questions you want about moving to particular islands. I specifically only focus on islands within CARICOM. So the French-speaking islands, the Dutch islands, the US, like the US Virgin Islands, it's kind of just too much. But yeah, the English-speaking islands within CARICOM, there should be content on all of those. And yeah, I have a workshop coming up. So I think a lot of people are like, I like the idea of moving abroad, but is it for someone like me? Or where do I start? Do I have enough money? What do I do about schools? Just really helping people to understand what it looks like to have an exit strategy, and what are the kind of key building blocks you need to put in place. That's a workshop that I have coming up later this month in February. So you can find details of that on Instagram or on the YouTube channel or on the website. But yeah.
Okay, what website name again, please?
Theexodus.co.
.co.
CO.
Right. I've noticed there's a lot of .co's popping up now. And at first, when I first saw it, I thought it was a mistake. But yes, I didn't even know. .co is a big thing now. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any sponsors or anyone else you might want to give a shout out to?
No sponsors. It's all self-funded. But anyone else, I would love if there's anyone. I'm yet to interview someone from Suriname, yet to interview someone from Guyana, and I'm yet to interview someone from the Bahamas. So if you have moved to any one of those three destinations, or if you know someone who might be willing to share their story, please do drop me a line, either on Instagram, or you can email me at zoe@theexodus.co. Yeah, I would feel a great sense of completion to know that I've covered all the islands. Yeah, that would be that. That's my request. That's my shout out if anyone out there is watching.
Excellent. Zoe, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful chatting to you. And I look forward to appearing on your show.
Yes. Let's make that happen soon. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been great chatting to you too.
Blessings. Take care.